Today in Locked On Red Wings, an absolute roller coaster of a performance. The Red Wings fall in a shootout to the Buffalo Sabres, but they battled back from a 3-goal deficit in the third period. There's just a lot to talk about in this one.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for the Daily J, WWJ News Radio podcast, while Scotty is the host of Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And Scotty and I are magic pretty clearly at this point, as last time we had a professional athlete on, a Detroit Red Wing on, they went on to score 2 goals, one for each of us, Scotty, I like to imagine. Oskar Sundqvist with only 1 goal in the season.
0 for you, actually.
Oh, okay. Fair. That's fair. Such a selfish player. Selfish friend is what you are. Selfish co-host. But, I mean, it didn't get caught in the episode because it was right after we ended
recording. It was after we had stopped recording, wasn't it?
But right as he was about to leave, I said, okay, go out there and score one for us tomorrow.
And he said, no problem.
And he scored not just 1, but 2 goals.
2.
And so here we sit.
He almost had a hattie too. He had an opportunity right in front of the net to get like a nice little redirect push in there. But yeah, alas, 2. Yeah. We'll gladly take 2. Well, the Red Wings, the game after they come on the show this season, are lights out at the time.
I mean, this game, this loss to the Buffalo Sabres, man, I don't even know. My emotions are so.
It's weird, man.
On both ends of the spectrum with this one.
Yeah. Like, I am emotionally drained and confused.
On one hand,
am I supposed to be upset? Am I supposed to be happy?
I don't think you should be happy. I think you can respect the fact that they fought back and erased the 3-goal deficit, but they should have never been in that position to begin with.
Correct.
I mean, one, you are a better team than the Buffalo Sabres. And I know now you've lost them twice this season, but I don't care. The Red Wings are a better team than the Buffalo Sabres. What'd you say?
You like my joke?
You
said you are a better team than the Buffalo Sabres, and I said thank you.
You're welcome, Scotty. But the Red Wings are
the better
team.
You're absolutely right.
And they came out and
they got shelled last time, and it looked like it was going to happen again.
And it's not necessarily so. It was a lot like the game against the Toronto Maple Leafs, where 5-on-5, the second period was its own anomaly as the Red Wings just got absolutely dominated in the second. They looked flat-footed. It looked like it was about to be another blowout. But in the first period and the third period especially, they were dominating the 5-on-5 play, and they just had poor goaltending behind them. And then Craig Anderson looked like Craig Anderson of his debut 20 years ago to the day, where he was just looking fantastic. I mean, he made a cartwheel save to stop Kubalik on the power play. So it was good goaltending versus bad goaltending again. As Nedeljkovic came out early in the game, as he, I think, corrected himself later on and looked pretty poor. He let in at least 3 softies. And
there was great that even one of those 3 softies that was really, really soft. Yeah.
And so it's great that he was able to adjust, but at that point, the damage was already done. Like, it's great you dug out of a 3-goal deficit, but you don't want to put yourself in a position to have to dig out of a 3-goal deficit anyways.
Yeah. Hold on. Keep talking. I think I'm about to sneeze. Okay, nope, just kidding. I talked my way out of it. Just kidding. Okay.
Great content from Scott Bentley today.
Well, I was literally about to mute, and then you were like, here, you talk. And I was like, shoot. But now it's not going to happen, apparently. So I agree with you, though. I think that I don't know, man. Like, it's such a weird feeling after that game. It really is. And I do give everyone, Ned included, obviously, I give everybody a lot of credit for not letting the game get out of hand and turning 4-1 into 8-2 like last time, and fighting and coming back and salvaging a point. That's obviously a massive, that's great considering where they were at. But they are the reason that they got down 4-1 too. It's not like there were outside forces that were the Red Wings, when they play on Wednesday, start off down 4-1. Good luck. Like, no, like their play caused that. And I don't know. It's really weird. It is really weird. I do think that the adjustments that Ned made were really solid. And I thought that the defense also sharpened up a lot in the second half of the game, I would say, like the end-ish of the second, but mostly in the third period. I thought the defense played a lot better. I mean, like a ton of injury scares too that like didn't help anything. It was a really chippy game, a lot of like skirmishes and skirmishes. That's not a word.
Skirmishes.
Skirmishes and
Scrums and skirmishes.
correct.
You
I just combined
them.
two words and like fights going on after. It was a very, very high intensity third period, and I'm very glad that they were able to salvage a point, but golly, I mean they played so poorly.
Sloppy, man.
Poorly
Sloppy
in the first half of the game that you can't even really be like, oh, like stole a point. Like I mean, I guess, but like you stole a point because of how bad you played. Like I don't know, that doesn't really work for me.
I mean, yeah, defensively, for the first half of that game, it was more of a question of what defense than how they played at all.
Terrific.
They were just scrambling. And I mean, again, offensively, they were producing chances. Offensively, they were producing more chances than they were giving up defensively, despite
Their
the defense
shot total was good
great
all throughout the entire game, really.
But they just, I really, Nedeljkovic is killing me, man, because he's got Peter Mrazek syndrome so hardcore. And I talked about it 2 days ago with obviously you about it, and the fact that this was an opportunity for Nedeljkovic to put his name in the back of Lalonde's mind for the option to start on Saturday if he were to come out and have a really good game. And he didn't do that. The second half of the game was good. He actually finished with a positive goal saved above expected of 0.21, which is a hair worse than what Craig Anderson finished with. So at the end of the game, he was a positive impact in the game because he did face a lot of shots by the end. But the problem was you let in 2 goals on 4 shots and then like 4 goals in 15 shots. And, you know, it's not 100% his fault, but they were softies, man. And this team is nothing without good goaltending. And we talked about that. A lot of what was carrying them through their win streak.
Holding the team together.
It was holding the team together, absolutely, because there was a long stretch of time, especially when the Detroit Red Wings were winning games off of scoring off the rush, special teams, and good goaltending. And that hasn't been present really in the last. They did score. Bergen's goal was pretty much off the rush there, but they haven't really scored goals on those ways in the last few games. But instead, their 5-on-5 has gotten better, but it hasn't been enough to win games. So it's like torn. It's like we were winning games, but not by how you want to win games. You got bad goaltending, bad special teams. I'm sure we'll talk about in segment 2 because you had 7 power play opportunities and didn't convert on a single one. It's just this team. They're so close to putting it all together, and it's just not clicking quite there yet. There's the potential there. You can see it, and like the step forward is there. Like you played Toronto hard. You lost 4-2 to the Maple Leafs, but all the metrics say you played better. In this game, most of the metrics say you played better, but special teams failed you and goaltending failed you, and those would have been the difference maker and in good 5-on-5 performances.
For sure, but it's also a totally different conversation when you're talking about like 60 minutes that across the entire 60, you played slightly better, and it was like a back and forth game, but all the analytics say you played slightly better, versus you got absolutely destroyed for the first 30 minutes of the game, and then you played significantly better than your opponent for the last 30 minutes of the game, and that's how you got to over 60, looking like you played slightly better than your opponent. Those are very, very different things. Like, very different things.
No, I completely agree. And like there has been an uptick in blown leads in the league this year, obviously this being one of them. And tons of social media posts about it. Sabres blew a 5-3 lead in the third period the night before the game against the Detroit Red Wings, blew a 4-1 in this one. So, it's not impossible to come back, but you don't want to put yourself in that position. And you can't succeed in the NHL on a consistent basis by comeback wins. And that's not how it works. We're going to continue the conversation after this about this 5-4 loss to the Buffalo Sabres in a shootout. But first, I got to talk to everyone today about betonline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball, soccer, and esports, they've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are breaking down the 5-4 shootout loss, the Buffalo Sabres, their second loss in a row, but they salvaged a point, and we're trying to explain that, well, it's nice that they battled back, and because we do like the fact that they battled back and didn't give up, because I tweeted it out. And I said, at the second intermission, you were down 4-1. I said, just don't give up. Fight and try and not make this be a blowout. And they did more than just that. They came back and they salvaged a point, but I think what is sour taste in the mouth. And as much as I appreciate the fact that they showed the heart to battle back, the sourness in my mouth is because of that poor first half of the game and poor goaltending performance and the inability to convert in the shootout, or not the shootout. Well, the shootout, yes, but on special teams, the special teams, especially 7 power play opportunities, Scotty, 0 goals for. Actually, 7 power plays, 1 goal against on those power plays.
-1. -1 on the power play is not great.
And they gave up a power play goal themselves. So 2 goals in this game came on special teams in moments where you want to shut that down. It's just that for a Red Wings team that has been thriving on the power play and the penalty kill too is even more surprising, because if you convert on one of those special teams and one of those power play opportunities, you win this game. And it takes me back to my point in the first segment, is that when they fix one issue, the other problems seem to slip away, and they're just so close to bringing it all together. If you can just combine the great things that they had when they were winning games with the consistency of the 5-on-5 that they've seemed to have been finding, then you're going to actually be a legitimate threat in the NHL. But you can't do that by not scoring on 7 power plays and then a 5-on-3 with a minute and a half left in the game.
Yeah. We've talked about it a lot this year, just about like the consistently inconsistent nature of this team. And like looking back over the last couple of weeks, all of your wins are against not very good teams lately. And I agree with you. You are a better roster than the Buffalo Sabres. This is a game you should have the upper hand in and should have the ability to win. And the fact that they fought back is great, and that's awesome. And like that's obviously a huge plus, but it's just the man, like for, I don't know, 4 or 5 games in a row, the power play will look really solid, and then they won't score for 3 games. And then they'll score 3 goals in 1 game and raise the percentage on the season because you just got 3 in a night, but then they won't score for the next 2 or 3. And it's just, it's a very inconsistent style that they have right now. And you see the flashes, and that's great. And that's really, if we zoom out and want to look big picture, that's really what a majority of this season is. Neither of us expected this team to make the postseason this year. And I think at the present moment, we still both stand by that. Like this is a step in the right direction season where you want to try and play meaningful hockey as late in the season as you can. But I don't think everyone was expecting the moon this year. And this is just another step in the right direction. And this is just part of the growing process, and it's very frustrating. Doesn't make it any easier or less or more fun to talk about or whatever. But seeing 0 for 7 on the power play, including a 5-on-3 to pretty much end the game, or at least a 5-on-3 that turned into a 5-on-4 to end the game, and not being able to convert is really brutal. Really brutal.
And we talk about, and not to beat the dead horse here, But,
Name
you
Freddie.
know, as we talk about the 5-on-5 play and how important that is, the Red Wings scored 4 5-on-5 goals in this game.
Yeah.
That's not a small feat. Like, that is an important fact
A huge
to
plus
focus
as
on.
well. That's why this game is so weird to
'Cause
talk about.
there's
Like,
huge
there is
benefit.
so many pros and so many things that are like, that's great. But there also is so many things you look at and you're like, oh my goodness, this was
Yeah.
really, really brutal. And like, I don't think that it has to be all one or the other. And this one definitely isn't. Like, this isn't a situation where it's like, oh, I think this was a good thing or I think this was a bad thing. Like, I think both can very much be true. And I think that's where we are.
No, and I mean, like, there was an abundance of great things in this game, but it's just really hard to focus on that when you're down 4-1 because of poor goaltending and inability to convert on the power play. I mean, you mentioned that there's 7 power plays, but you not even looking at the advanced analytics that I love to bring up, the Corsi and the expected goals for percentage, you dominated in every single statistical category. That's like a basic stat. You had 45 shots to 34.
Yeah,
7
you
power plays
outshot them by
helps with
over
that.
10 again. That's
Yeah.
several games in a row that you've outshot your
You
opponent.
out hit
Pretty
your opponent
comfortably.
25-10. You had 15 more hits than they did.
Also, for whatever it's worth, I don't know what got into the Red Wings today. They dominated the faceoff circle,
I
which
was
is
just
another
about to bring
thing
that up.
that they like throughout this season we have talked about as a huge like issue. And like Dylan Larkin at one point, I think it was heading into the third or in the middle of the second, was like 8 for 10 in the faceoff circle. And I think we ended up winning almost 70-30. Like they
Yeah.
dominated in the
68 to
faceoff circle,
31.
which is a huge plus and something that, again, we struggled with a lot to start off the season. That and the 5-on-5 play. And both of those were good tonight. But like, they're still like, they dug themselves into their own hole too. I don't know. It's weird.
Well, also they had 11 giveaways to 6. So
Right, exactly. It's
you
just a
can't.
roller coaster,
Yeah,
man. It really
absolutely.
is. The whole thing's a roller coaster.
I mean, the Red Wings, it was a very, very sloppy game. The giveaways are a dead giveaway, as you could say.
Wow,
That they played a sloppy game.
that was corny.
Thank you. Appreciate it. But yeah, there's just so much about this game. There's so much to like, but so much to hate. I hate to do this to Nedeljkovic because we were such staunch supporters, but I can't help but think that this game isn't a loss if he just is sharp in those first half of the game, like where he's just making
Which
the
is
saves he
something,
should.
yeah.
I think that's
when
a fair
something
criticism.
right. That's something we've been talking about with Ned since last year.
Yeah.
Right. The early goals that he has a tendency to give up, and the Wings last season did it all the time. And yeah, and like that's not to say that this defense was perfect, especially in the second period. It was actually, I thought, pretty brutal. But unit as a whole, I mean that's something that again, when Ned is in net, dating back to last season, we've talked about at length the fact that
He's hot and cold, man.
yeah, that it's A, super streaky, and B, that there's a huge tendency that is becoming more and more consistent, even though we're on to year 2 of net in net, that the Red Wings rather give up quick goals when he's in there.
So yeah, I mean, we have a whole nother segment left, and I want to talk about Kopp. I want to talk about Berger, and I want to talk about Sonny individually. I thought Kopp had a really good game, but to summarize, I mean, the Red Wings played a really, really good game, except for 2 facets. Nedeljkovic wasn't sharp, and you didn't convert on the power play. Main reasons why you lost. Other than that, I thought they played a really good hockey game. They just couldn't get it done. So we'll wrap this up in segment 3. And we'll talk about those players that I just mentioned like 30 seconds ago. Transition game 100.
Really great.
We'll be right back. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Let's talk about Oskar Sundqvist. We let off the show talking about it, joking about how we deserve credit for him scoring 2 goals because he was on the show last night. But he actually had a really good game outside of that. And I won't even say this game in particular. He's actually been on a heater lately in terms of like not producing numbers, but he's gotten a lot of really good looks close to scoring and just hasn't been able to bury the puck. And in this game, it came to fruition and he scored 2 goals. Very different goals. Kopp behind the net, feeds it out front. Sundqvist is just there, ready, buries it. And then the other one's right off the faceoff. He just rifles it, beats Anderson clean. I don't think he ever saw it because Kopp was in front of him off the faceoff. Oskar Sundqvist is finally generating the goals that we thought he could. Not to say that we thought he could. He's not like a goal scorer, but he's getting what he deserves because he's not a 1-goal scorer. He's probably somewhere between a 10 and 15 goal scorer. And to see him finally be able to find the back of the net is a nice thing to see. And those were really nice goals that he scored in this game. And he's played really well up until this point.
Yeah, he's a incredibly valuable like depth forward in this league just because of the intangibles that he brings. We've talked about
defensively.
Right. I think a lot of that has to do with just the intangibleness of being 6'3" and a forward. Like that's something that not like everyone can provide. And he has that and yeah, it translates to really good defense. We saw a couple of pokes from him in this game too, which I thought also Rasmussen had a couple of really nice poke checks, but all the big guys. But
he's finding his hands, man.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, like Sonny is just a dude that every team in the NHL could put that on their third or fourth line, depending on how deep they are, and it would improve it, right? Like that's just like the style of game that he brings and the type of depth forward that he is, and it's so valuable. And like you said, it's really nice. He's been playing good hockey just without putting the puck in the back of the net.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see him start doing that too, and hopefully it's a sign of things to come. Because if he adds that and finishes the season with, like you said, like 13 to 17 plus what he provides elsewhere, I mean that's a an incredible performance down in the third or fourth line.
He's got size, he's got a decent shot, he plays sound defense. Like you said, he's
a problem in front of the net when he wants to be too. He is a problem in front of the net,
which is why they put him down there on the power play in front of the net.
Yeah.
And he's just like you said, he is like if you were to look up third liner in the dictionary, the hockey dictionary, you'd get a picture of Oskar Sundqvist. Like he is, and that's a compliment because he fits really well in that bottom six setup. And it came to fruition in this game, but also Andrew Kopp got slotted down to line 2. Rasmussen got to look at line 3, who Rasmussen, again, to what you said, played a really good game. His Corsi for percentage in this one was 66.67. Relative, it was a 16%. So when he was on the ice, the team generated 16% more scoring chances than when he was off the ice. Shooting attempts. Let me make sure I get that right. But Andrew Kopp went down to line 3, got a little bit of I'd rather say it's a Rasmussen promotion than an Andrew Kopp demotion. But Andrew Kopp on line 3 looked fantastic, and he got 2 primary assists on both of Sundqvist's goal, and they were both perfectly drawn up plays. So Andrew Kopp looked really good in this game as well. And I really liked seeing that because that's a player that the Red Wings definitely need to turn it on. And he is slowly beginning to turn on the production for the Detroit Red Wings. And in this game, as everyone was, he was good in the faceoff circle as well. And that's another thing the Red Wings desperately need from him.
Yeah, big time. I think that this is not a like permanent, he's going to be down at 3C for the rest of the year. I think, like you said, it'll be a lot more fluent than that. And I think if he gets his legs back under him and starts producing at the level that he has like the last week or so, honestly, but the level that they expected of him, then he'll move right back up to that 2C role that was expected of him this summer. But I thought he looked a lot more comfortable offensively. And I also thought that for whatever it's worth defensively, he was pretty productive in this one, which is something that I don't think has been a huge issue up to this point. It's a lot harder to quantify it with like stats and such, but I don't think that his defense has been super poor so far. But I do think that he looked really sharp tonight for whatever that's worth.
I completely agree. I think he did look sharp. As did I think that fourth line of Suter, Veleno, and Bergeron has looked really good too. Pretty consistently good in the limited minutes they get. 7 minutes of ice time in this one, but they had an expected goals for percentage of 83%, 36% better than the other lines. So I mean, they look solid out there. And Jonathan Bergeron was rewarded very early in the game, and that goal feels like it was a millennia ago in terms of first 80 seconds of the game, and the rest of the game after that were so vastly different.
Like I was younger when that happened.
Right. I had more hair back then. Psych.
All right. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but
it was a really good shot from him. So
It was.
Just want to give shout outs to the guys who played well. It's really weird game giving anyone credit, but also a weird game just bagging on them because it was such a mixed bag.
Again, man, like I don't want to sound like a broken record and like keep reiterating that point, but it's a weird game to just like summarize in one mood or emotion. Like it's not. I don't think that it's possible to just be like, oh, this was good, or oh, I disagree, this was bad. Like this was everything. This was every single emotion you could pretty much think of.
Oh, I mean, without a doubt, it's just. There was so much to love and also so much to hate in this one. I mean, the only other thing I have to talk about this game is just the amount of near injuries that the Red Wings had.
Yeah.
Moritz
Yeah, I
Seider
think that's a
taking a
talking
shot off the
point,
back
though.
of the leg. Adam Ernie got popped in the mouth. Bertuzzi taking a slap shot off the hand that he broke and left. And I was like, there it is again. It's re-broke because it wasn't 100%
He
yet.
went right down the tunnel too.
Man,
Both him and Seider did, and both of them came back out. So
there's a lot of conversations on individual players that I want to have when we have a proper off day. I want to talk about that Seider-Sherratt pair. I want to talk about Jake Wollman because I've really liked what he's had.
Yeah.
But I also want to talk about Tyler Bertuzzi because he's come back from injury, but it doesn't feel like he's having a huge impact yet on the ice, and
he hasn't. Yeah,
he hasn't. So there's some individual players I definitely want to talk about, but the greatest of all of them are Jake Wollman because I think he's been great since he's come off of his surgery. I think he's come back from last season better than he was last season in the limited time we saw him. So those are guys I want to talk about next time we have an opportunity. But besides that, you got any final thoughts?
I'm glad that it looked like everybody that gave us an injury scare is okay.
Yes.
That genuinely was. I mean, there was one point in the game where we were down 4-1, and then Seider took one off the knee and hobbled into the tunnel. Like that was like a moment tonight. And then turns out Seider isn't hurt like seriously and was able to play the rest of the game, and we got a point. Like it was a dramatic and drastic turnaround. Yeah, I'm glad that it looks like everybody. I mean, I'm assuming if they were healthy enough to go back out there and finish the game, that they're somewhat okay at least. So I'm happy that the injury scares were not as scary as they could have been. But that was the low point of the game. Was you were down 3 goals, and Seider just looked like he took a baseball bat to the kneecap, and then. Just kidding. He's playing the rest of the game, and you're setting it to overtime. Weird game, but I'm glad that they were able to turn it around, and I'm glad that everybody that looked like they were hurt at one point, the multitude of players that seemed to be okay.
The Yzerman interview, did you catch that?
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't say anything. He never does.
I mean, it's Steve Yzerman, yeah.
They're like, rebuild. He's like, we're rebuilding. Got to be patient. They're like, they said some like weird backhanded compliments to him, which I thought was odd. They're like, you never struck me as a patient player. So what's it like being? I'm like, oh, dude waited like a decade and a half to get his first Stanley Cup. I think he's anything but patient, and everything and patient. Like what?
I mean, whatever.
It felt like everything they were saying was like with a caveat. And so then he talked a little bit about the organizational structure, and he talked a little bit about like just how the rebuild's going and how you have to wait. But he didn't really, in typical Steve Yzerman fashion, didn't really say anything of merit.
Didn't say much, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Unlike Derek Lalonde, who will say everything and will just say it as it is, which is incredible.
Awesome.
But yeah, that's about it. We'll be back tomorrow with a day off episode, but we do have something scheduled. And a game preview.
BetOnline.
We'll be back tomorrow. Same time. Same place. It's your team.
You haven't asked me that question in a while. Every day.